Welcome to the Soul Archaeology podcast, a space for connection, resonance, witnessing, and learning. Together we'll harvest medicine from the spiral of life, sharing conversations with other embodied humans who have navigated their own initiations and found alignment with their true soul essence. With weekly astrology, energy updates, embodied conversation, and channeled teachings, this is a space for you to land and find resonance with the spiral of your own soul. Hello, welcome back to Soul Archaeology. I just have to take a moment and say how much I appreciate each and every one of you. It's so amazing to connect with you guys. I've talked to a few people over the last week who listen religiously on Mondays, and it just really made me so happy. Every time someone says that, it just means the world to me. So thank you. It's so funny being a soloed podcaster and someone who creates, content on a regular basis, that I just really hope that it's helpful and supportive for people. And, I'm just, having that feedback really means a lot. So I'm so grateful. And I also got to meet a few people on my clarity calls about one-on-one mentorship, which has been so wonderful. As always, meeting just the most incredible people. So I do have a few spaces. I have 2 spaces left for private mentorship this summer. And it's just my favorite way to work with people. I love my group work. The vessel is just unfolding in such a beautiful way. We did some really deep diving on the nervous system this week. And then I have my one-on-one work, which I love so much. And it's such an intimate journey, one-on-one together over the course of 3 months. A lot of people continue and extend that. But it's just been incredible to see the hundreds of women I've been able to and lucky enough to work with over the years grow and expand. Many of them have their own businesses now, are thriving and growing and evolving in ways that fills my heart. Many of them are just growing and thriving in life, relationship, creative endeavors, health. Yeah, and it's just such a gift. So I have a few spaces left for that. It's really a very unique container. It's very tailored to you specifically, what you're moving through, but the entire thing is designed as a vehicle for transformation. So we're working through the different layers, pinpointing those exact patterns that are bringing you into these pockets where you sort of feel stuck or stagnant. If you're in a liminal space, if you're in an in-between space, if you're in a transformational portal and you're like, I have no idea where I am or what I'm doing or how to move through this, I don't know what I should be focusing on, this container was created for you. If you feel like you're in an upgrade and you're not sure how to work through it, if you're experiencing a lot of activations and feeling a bit flooded, this container is perfectly designed for that. So it blends astrology, somatic and intuitive healing and practices, quantum healing. It's really designed to bridge the somatic experience, the soma, the body, and the quantum field. So I have 2 spaces left, and this will be the last time I'm offering this in 2026 because I am actually pregnant, which was a sweet little surprise that I wanted to share with all of you. I think many of you do subscribe to my Substack and listen over there, and I announced it, I guess, 2 weeks ago over there, and I wanted to share it with you all here. So very exciting, surprise little eclipse baby that came in, in February. So I'm due around end of October, early November, mid-November, somewhere in that time frame, whenever she decides she'd like to come. The first trimester was very bumpy and I was very sick, and I did take a week off from podcasting, but besides that was showing up, and I'm not quite sure what the schedule for the podcast will be at the end of the year. with this new development in life. But I will definitely be pausing my taking on new one-on-one mentorship clients. So this summer through the end of summer and into early fall will be the last round. So if you've been wanting to work with me in 2026 or even early 2027, this is the opportunity. So there is a whole new chapter emerging for me and my partner and this podcast. And I already feel the upgrades and the up-levelings happening with the pregnancy. And it was something we wanted to prepare for, maybe at the end of this year, early next year, but she came right in, right when she was meant to. And I feel extremely, extremely lucky. If you want to know more, you can subscribe to my Substack. I'll link it in the show notes. Feeling very full with gratitude these days and anticipation and uncertainty and just all of the things, fears, excitement, joy, all at the same time, which is very characteristic of a threshold. So just being in it, I know all parents can probably resonate with the fact that this is one of the biggest initiations and I'm in the beginning stages of it. So I really do tend to process things really early though. So I'll process something happening before it even happens. And I feel like I've been preparing for this for a while, quite some time. And I do so much of this work in my own work. So I hold space for a lot of mothers. I've worked with many women on fertility and womb work and getting pregnant. And it's just so wonderful and beautiful to be able to do it in this way with myself. I've crossed the threshold with other women through pregnancy and into birth and labor and postpartum. So it's a gift and you will all be on the journey with me. So we just crossed the 2222 mark in the recording, which is very sweet. Maybe those will be our numbers. But we'll have a whole new little channel on board for Soul Archaeology. And it was interesting. I was kind of curious how it would feel to channel while pregnant. I've always really wondered that over the course of my work and over the years. And it feels about the same. So that's good. I do feel like the year and 6 months leading up to becoming pregnant, though, my psychic centers that were fully online. My intuition was really, really expanded. I've been picking up on things in kind of wild ways. So, I mean, that's the work I do, but also just being in my personal life and just feeling so open. It's really, really been incredible. So, and if you listen to this, you know that I've been on a big upgrade process too, just with my nervous system and some trauma processing and healing work. And so it's all happening when it's meant to. And that's just a reminder for you too. This is a more personal note, but I really, I knew I wanted to be a mom and I'm 37. I had this weird thing. I think we all have little things like this, but so there was something in my psyche where I didn't want to be older than my mom was when she had me. And my mom was 38 when she had me. And granted, I have friends who are having big, beautiful, healthy babies in their 40s. And it wasn't about that for me. It wasn't like, oh, I don't want to have a baby in my 40s because I would be so thrilled to have a baby in my 40s. It was more so something ancestral, something in my lineage, like just something imprinted, right? And I think more of it was a shadow imprint, but I remember on my 37th birthday, I was like, well, I'm going to miss it. I'm going to miss that mark where my mom was when she had me. And then all of a sudden it came through. So, but I really thought I would have trouble getting pregnant. I had adenomyosis and some other pieces and parts that, I just kind of assumed it would take a while and it didn't. But I also had a lot of fear and control over the timeline of this and what it would look like. And I wanted to be in this place and feel this way and finances and things like that, right? That we all try to control in life and plan for. And she was conceived right around it was within eclipse season. And I found out I was pregnant right before the lunar eclipse in Virgo that was directly over my personal South Node in Virgo. So that's a lot of personal information, but I just wanted to share that this is a full nodal return gift and present from the universe, from God, reminding me that I'm not in control of the timeline, that there are forces, a creative force that is working with me, and that the more I let go and surrender control and trust the timing of things, the more aligned they can happen. So this has been already just a process in surrendering control, trusting, swimming through uncertainty, and I'm here for it. So I'm on my full South Node in Virgo medicine portal, North Node in Pisces medicine portal. And I'm sure I'll be sharing bits and pieces along the way. If you want to know more, I write more personal pieces on my Substack just because this space I really like to keep for astrology and the weekly downloads. It's nice and concise and short, so you can listen to it on a drive or on a walk. But my Substack is a place where I really go deeper into these personal bits and pieces. So you can subscribe for free, and there are some free posts that I provide. I also write notes, and then it's $8 a month to be a paid subscriber. And that actually supports the production of this podcast too, which I do all on my own, and I don't have any sponsors. So I would love to see you over there. If you're not on Substack, I highly recommend it. I feel like it's way better than any other social media site. I feel so creative over there. It's enlivening. If you're kind of burnout or tired of TikTok or Instagram or whatever, Substack is like a breath of fresh air. So I will always have Soul Archaeology, but I do love Along the Spiral, my Substack too. And it's just a different energy in a different space. So, okay, so enough about me. I'd love to talk about the energy of this week. So last week it ended up being quite a lot. I don't know if you all felt that. There was some intensity. There was definitely some pressure aspects. I talked about those between Mars and Pluto, which is always intense. We had a Saturn-Venus square on Friday too. And then we went straight into this full moon in Sagittarius late Saturday night, early Sunday evening here on the West Coast. Sorry, early Sunday morning here on the West Coast. And I talked to a lot of people who had a lot of material come up last week. Of course, it always depends on your own chart, your own, experiences at the moment, what you're moving through. But yeah, there is a general intensity in the air. I think that so many of us are at pivot points. I'm sure certainly am, as I just shared, and really getting pushed into a new timeline, quite literally. Like, there's no dragging our feet. There's no procrastination. There's no wavering. It's just, if you're meant to be somewhere, you're getting pushed into it right now. Now, that doesn't have to be this huge push. It doesn't have to be something like super obvious, but there are forces. This Aries energy is very pushy and forceful, and it's quite literally like moving us onto new timelines. That's often uncomfortable because we're not in control over that process, right? We're not in control over the timing or even the circumstances or the people involved. And we ended May with a full moon in Sagittarius. It was a blue moon. It was the second full moon of May. And so those are quite rare. And I mean, it made May very supercharged for sure. And we're headed into a new month. So on Monday, June 1st, we start June with Mercury entering Cancer. And then on June 2nd, the Sun in Gemini is sextile Saturn in Aries. And on the 4th, Mercury in Cancer trines the North Node in Pisces, and it squares Neptune in Aries. So this week is much softer. It's more of an integration week. It's a little bit slower. Things aren't going to be as in your face, as intense, pressurized as they were last week with those squares and the full moon in Sagittarius. So we have some time, a little bit of a bridge to kind of integrate the intensity of May, the intensity of last week. And June overall is quite an auspicious month. It's actually it's considered one of the more positive or maybe even easier months of the year. Now it's going to be fast. We do have Mercury stationing retrograde at the end of June. So starting in the second week of June, we're in the shadow of Mercury retrograde. Shadow meaning it's when Mercury begins to slow down to prepare for its journey through the underworld. And the shadow is really just the sort of the terrain that Mercury crosses, or any planet crosses, before it stations retrograde. It's the terrain that it will retrograde over. So it's when we start that process, when we start to experience the underworld beginning. And June is building momentum. So this week is a bit slower as we integrate from the powerful pressure aspects last week and the intensity of that full moon in Sagittarius. But mid-month, we have one of the more auspicious and beneficial and positive and luckiest days of the year when Venus meets with Jupiter. So Venus in Cancer at the end of Cancer meets with Jupiter at the end of Cancer. So Jupiter is getting ready to complete its journey through Cancer, and it's entering Leo. And if you listen to my 2026 forecast workshop, it's linked in the show notes, you know that that's one of the most electrifying transits of this year because it activates all the outer planets. So right before Jupiter enters Leo, Venus meets with it. This is a really auspicious portal. So mid-month, we have that the second week of June. And then Venus also moves into Leo after that. Jupiter follows at the end of the month on the 30th. Chiron enters Taurus on June 19th. So that's significant, especially for my Chiron and Aries people. It's going to retrograde back into Aries. But we have this new chapter emerging. This is the first time it's entering Taurus since 1984. So for my Chiron and Aries people, I know there are many of you that listen to this podcast. Congratulations. You are starting the beginning journey of leaving your Chiron return, which is such an intense portal of time. If you have Chiron and Taurus natally in your chart, you are beginning your Chiron return. So there's a very big shift in the evolutionary pressure in the sky when Chiron shifts signs. It's where our core wounding will be activated. So if you have Chiron and Taurus natally, I know many of you also are on here listening to this podcast, you're beginning your Chiron return. And we'll talk more about that, of course, when Chiron shifts into Taurus. But June brings some big shifts. Of course, Chiron shifting into Taurus, Jupiter shifting into Leo on the 30th, Mercury retrograde beginning on the 29th. Mars is also shifting into Gemini and meeting with Uranus right away. So this is a dynamic month. There are a lot of auspicious and beneficial and supportive transits happening. And it's all building to July. So we know that July holds a lot of potent energy. That's also why I'm really excited to work with new people in my one-on-one mentorship, because this is going to be a very wild month. And this summer is going to be very potent and charged and intense and powerful. Mercury entering Cancer. So Mercury's been in Gemini since May 17th. So the mind has been active. Of course, we've been in Gemini season for well over a week now. We had the full moon in Sagittarius. We've had Venus in Gemini, Uranus in Gemini. So Gemini is a theme right now. The mind is online. Our consciousness is expanding. Our consciousness is being reworked, but it might have felt a little heady. And this is because we're being asked to play with duality. We're being asked to befriend change. I talked a lot about that in the last episode. We're being asked to pivot and remain fluid and adaptable and open, because it will be a bit of a bumpy ride over the next few years. We have a lot of change coming. Now, this doesn't mean it's bad change or negative change. It just means that we're having to befriend change in order to move through this time feeling resourced and grounded and anchored. I know when I talk about a lot of change, it can bring up anxiety, but we also know that a lot needs to change. So whether that's in your personal life or collectively, we can see that so much does need to change. So the only way out is through. Now we are shifting this week. We have Mercury entering Cancer. So our emotional landscape is going to be online over the next few months, especially because we have a Mercury retrograde in Cancer. So Mercury is moving from the mind where it's at home into feeling. So this is a shift from this sort of analysis and thinking and trying to figure out and strategizing logistics to intuition, sense, feeling, memory, emotion, emotional resonance, the body, memory. Like I said, we have a Mercury retrograde at the end of the month. So wherever Cancer is in your chart, you will be going into a descent over the next month and a half. This is just, there's material here. There's content here. There's something that wants to be tended, felt, experienced. There's also an opportunity to break through some heart walls. I talk a lot about heart walls on this podcast, and Mercury in Cancer is a perfect opportunity to see behind the veil, to move beyond the calcifications around our hearts where we protect ourselves, where we shrink or defend, or not even protect from grief and disappointment and pain, but also protect from love. And it brings us into a deeper relationship with the emotional body, with our intuition, with sensing and feeling and moving through life, connected to our emotions. This doesn't mean we need to let our emotions lead, but it does mean we have to create an intimate bond or relationship with them in order to feel whole and complete and resourced and aware. So don't worry, we'll be able to do that over the next month and a half with this Mercury retrograde. But just now, kind of paying attention to, what does it feel like, that shift when Mercury moves from Gemini, that mutable mutable air, into cardinal water. It's dynamic, but it's deep, it's penetrating, it's even slower. There's an opportunity here to maybe have conversations around what you're feeling, what you're sensing, an emotional layer, something that maybe you've been holding deep or protecting within yourself that you'd like to share with someone. There's also a tendency to maybe shell up or close off or want to hide or want to protect. And that is the shadow, right? The fear, the trauma, the grief, the emotion that we want to tend to through this time as well. So this can be a very hard opening experience. Venus has been here. Cancer season is always tender. It's going to be extra interesting this year with all the intensity of Jupiter in Leo. But we're still in Gemini season. So the sun's still there. There's still stuff happening. And on the 2nd, the sun meets with Saturn in Aries to form a sextile, which is considered a harmonious aspect. It's a supportive aspect. I think that what this transit will do is maybe provide some clarity. We have Mercury moving into water, so things might not be as clear. It might be more of a felt sense or more of an experience. And with the sun in Gemini meeting with Saturn in Aries, there's sort of a potential here to gain clarity, to make moves, to create some structure, some strategy, just something that is clarifying in a way. Saturn offers structure, right? Saturn in Aries is, let's get it done, let's do it, let's plan, let's do it the right way. Gemini wants to explore, Saturn wants commitment. So there's a lot of potentials, a lot of possibilities. You might be feeling this in your life. You're like, this thing could go a million different ways. Like, there are a lot of potentials on the table. You might notice this week that Saturn offers maybe the next best step, or a breakthrough point, or a new way of seeing something. It gives some shape and form to the more mutable, the more chaotic sun in Gemini. And the sun provides some illumination or some clarity. So it's illuminating. Saturn in this way can provide some insight, maybe even where you're blocked or where you're preventing something from moving forward, or where you need more structure, more strategy, more intention in what you're planning. Saturn's good at sort of initiating action, especially Saturn in Aries. So ideas can become plans here. So there's definitely some potential for movement and action. Gemini asks questions and explores, and Aries takes action. So we will see what that looks like on Tuesday. And then on June 4th, Mercury, newly in Cancer, forms a trine with the North Node in Pisces, which is at the earlier degrees of Pisces, and also squares Neptune in Aries. So just focusing on forming a trine with the North Node in Pisces, this is an opportunity to expand your intuition, your consciousness, potential, dreams, insight, conversations, trust, intuition. The North Node in Pisces is guiding us to a destiny point. The thing is, that destiny point will likely be unclear. It's mutable water. So this is not the type of thing where Pisces is like, this is the destination, this is your drishti, focus on it. It's saying, you might not have any idea what this looks like or even what the path ahead looks like, but can you trust that what's ahead is right for you, is aligned? So it's been a big trust fall the last few years with this North Node in Pisces, and having Mercury trine this week, it's bringing us into a deeper layer of what that intuition feels like in the body. What is it like to trust something that we cannot see? What is it like to believe and even orient to something we cannot touch? This is a big activation point for our intuition. Can you listen? Can you open? Can you surrender? Can you soften? Can you believe that something more aligned is on the horizon for you? Maybe you start communicating with it. Maybe you start setting the intention that you want to know what it looks like or feels like, maybe not even with your own eyes, but just with a feeling or a sense. And interestingly enough, that same day, Mercury also squares Neptune in Aries. So Neptune is the ruler of Pisces. So we have the North Node in Pisces being ruled by Neptune, trine Mercury, but at the same time, Mercury is squaring Neptune in Aries. So there's a contradiction here. There's a bit of a push and pull. It's discerning between intuition and fantasy. So this is an opportunity this week to really see, are you bypassing something? Are you giving up, or are you collapsing rather than surrendering? There's a big difference. Surrendering means you're still participating, you're still moving through things, you're still staying aligned, but you're giving it to God in a way. You're letting the outcome unfold through mystery. Collapse or bypassing means you're just avoiding the conflict or the reality or the grit or the hard work to get there. So this Mercury square Neptune transit is all about discernment, knowing where you're collapsing into fantasy or hope or sort of waiting for someone to come save you, or where you're surrendering in a healthy way. I know that's nuanced, but this is the invitation this week, is to just slow down a little bit, enjoy the integration, to notice things on a deeper level. This is psychic energy. Mercury in Cancer, North Node in Pisces, Neptune in Aries. We are in the psychic realm, the intuitive realm this week. It's not as in your face as the Gemini, Sagittarian energy we've been in, these squares even. This is more subtle. This is more intuitive. This is more nuanced and even ambiguous and intuitive rather than it is visceral or visible. It's a week to kind of sit with what's unfolded over the last 2 weeks with that big full moon in Sagittarius. And just sort of sense, what does it feel like in your body right now? What messages are coming through? You don't have to make big, huge decisions. Can you just be with something for a moment? Once again, certainty is not guaranteed right now. We are in the unknown. The North Node in Pisces is guiding us. I feel like we're on a boat in the fog and we know we're headed where we're meant to be. Hopefully you can feel that, but it's not necessarily clear. We might get little visions of the horizon or insights that come through that said, yes, this is the right place, or yes, this is correct. You're on the right path, or this is like a little glimpse of what it might look like. But the full shape might not be revealing itself at the moment, and that's okay. Your dreams might be very active this week. I think anytime Mercury is meeting with and engaging with Neptune, there's a big potential that a lot comes through in the dream space, and that there's a lot of processing and even more clarity than normal that comes through in that space. And even just intuitively, psychic downloads, intuitive hits, synchronicities, things that kind of come in, and maybe that's just your daily life. And then you'll be, fit right in. It's perfect energy for you. So the card that I pulled for this week for the Soul Archaeology community, I always sit down and ask Source to pull the card that is in the deepest resonance with this community and the people that listen regularly on this podcast, or, maybe it's even just a handful of people that really need to hear a message or something. But the card I pulled from the Untamed Elemental deck is the Seashell card, and it's all about spiritual growth. It says her nautical structure is immaculate. She's an evolutionary protector of life. Seashell is born with precision, forged to embody robust stability. Carried by waves and tides, she is a guardian of life, promoting a harmonious tranquility and the sincere, courageous benevolence of spiritual growth. She is definite and unparalleled. Seashell is an auspicious insignia of your unfolding evolution and validates that you are on a path of true spiritual development. Spirit enlists Seashell's immaculate design and ability to weather a myriad of conditions as a metaphor, asking that you recognize all things as coming from the same source of intelligence that generates, organizes, and dissolves the entirety of life in this universe. If you choose it to be so, every loss, mistake, fear, pleasure, and reckoning are in service to your self-realization. At this point in your evolution, it is impossible for you to leave the path. With that in mind, why not enjoy the full, beautiful evolutionary experiment? Rest in the unshakable truth that you are traveling upward on a golden spiral and there's no going back. When it's balanced, you're embracing unmitigated growth. When it's imbalanced, you're only accepting certain preferred circumstances as being spiritual. To bring into balance, give yourself permission to enjoy and embrace all life. I love that. I feel like it's so on point with this week too. The North Node in Pisces engaging with Mercury and Cancer, water, flow, trust, the waves, the ebb and flows of the tides, and just embracing that journey. I mean, it is definitely a journey. And if you are here at this time, if you're listening to this podcast, you are on a journey, I know, and so glad you're here. And I know it's not easy. And I just appreciate that you are taking the time to go into these layers for yourself. Obviously, you're on a path of spiritual growth and development if you're here listening to this. And so I'm sending many blessings along this path. And my hope is that you find some joy and ease and flow along the way. And that this week feels a little bit slower and a little bit softer than last week. So thank you for being here as always, for supporting Soul Archaeology, sharing, rating, reviewing, subscribing. All of those things help me so much. Like I said, I am a independent producer of this podcast. I do everything on my own and I love it, but it is, I would love your support. So sharing with a friend, sharing on social media, sharing in a book club or, a spiritual club or something you're a part of means a lot. Also joining Substack if that resonates with you. Have a beautiful, beautiful week, and I will see you in a week.